This episode of Daystrom Station is brought to you by Oops, All Captains, part of a complete Federation breakfast.
Well, here we are again, my friends, gathered together to discuss Star Trek Picard Season 3, specifically this time the Daystrom Station information that we gathered in Episode 6 of this third season. Now, originally I never intended to do an episode breakdown on all the Easter eggs and all those fancy things that we discovered in Daystrom Station. Obviously, I thought a lot of them were just fun little nods to past Star Trek, connecting the universe, all of that. However, over the past few days, there's a few things I've been thinking about over and over again in my head, and they're things I have not really seen touched upon in any other videos or breakdowns. No, they're not necessarily the clues that these eggs leave us. They're not necessarily ways they'll play into the storyline, but I do want to touch on a few of the things found within the station first. But there's two big glaring things that really haven't been addressed so much, and they have to do with what's happening at Daystrom Station after the events of this episode. Sure, there were a lot of fun things for fans to glean from the episode. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if this person came back to life? All of those things. Before I get into the meat of what I really want to touch on here, let's go over a few of the things that actually were found within Daystrom Station, because I think some of them might have some more importance and some of them might just be Easter eggs. So starting off, we did see several bodies in here, and I don't want to belabor the point because, yes, the main crux of everything was that they could get in there and steal the original organic body of Jean-Luc Picard. However, hidden in the background, there were a couple of other bodies, most notably James T. Kirk. Originally, I was thinking, what do these two things have in common besides being the first two major players in our Star Trek history books as captains? Obviously, both captains of the Enterprise. What else is similar between them? Well, both of them had a complicated relationship with the Nexus. So I was wondering to myself, is it possible Section 31 or Starfleet Intelligence or the Daystrom researchers, they were keeping both of these bodies because of the impact and the influence that the Nexus had upon them? That was the one underlying main link that I could find between them, aside from all of the ancillary stuff like starship captains, important historical characters, legacy captains of the Enterprise, all of that stuff. That was the one main link. Obviously, Picard has stuff going on. He lived a whole other lifetime with the Inner Light. He was taken over by the Borg, transferred consciousnesses, all of those fancy things. Kirk had a lot of stuff going on too. He transferred consciousnesses, but none of them had specific things linked to them aside from the Nexus that was similar. That was my main thought there. However, then we go ahead and find that Jonathan Archer was also being stored here. Clearly, we have no precedent in Alpha Canon to believe that he was involved in the Nexus. He did have a run-in with the Borg, but he was never assimilated, so that link is tenuous at best. But if you want to throw this in there, maybe this is off the beaten path a little bit, he was also incredibly involved in time travel, the temporal Cold War, the whole Daniel subplot, that stuff in Enterprise. So maybe the Nexus and all of these temporal shenanigans are what they're really here to study. Maybe this black site, this Daystrom Station, isn't actually run by who we think it's run by. Perhaps this is an outpost in the past of the Temporal Investigations Unit. Maybe they're keeping these people unaware by the vast majority of Starfleet or even Section 31. They're agents from the future, safeguarding these important people to the past and to history. That might be a wild theory, but the only thing I can really think that ties them all together is temporal stuff. And of course, if you look at all the Starfleet captains, most of them have been involved in time travel stuff. Of course, there's always the grand theory out there that they just want to safeguard the genetic material of really important high-ranking officers, but there's probably more going on with that. So we also see here, we saw the Genesis device, the Genesis 2. Obviously, the original was destroyed. This is probably a copy, an update, has potentially more power. I don't know if it's using that unstable proto-matter or whatever it was called. Not really sure if or what this is being used for. Probably more than likely just an Easter egg, and I don't have any thoughts on how it's going to be used. If I were to hazard a guess on any potential tie-in that might have to do with this storyline, changelings, unstable proto-matter, creating a new planet from scratch, there might be a tenuous link there somehow. Maybe the changelings want to use this, need to use this, but I don't think it's actually going to come into play in the story whatsoever. There were a couple of other things. I mentioned them in my video, but I also didn't mention this one. There was what looks like the Thalaron radiation array from Star Trek Nemesis, that big thing that ended up killing Data. Data, and it also killed the Romulan Senate and started off the whole coup by the Remans and by Shinzon, all of that stuff. This is a deadly weapon, obviously. I believe it's banned in the Federation, and I'm assuming it still is to this day, so it would be very bad if this got out into the public. Is there going to be a use for this? Will this come back into play, or is it just another nasty weapon being kept here for research? Probably more than likely the case. Don't have any sort of ideas on what that might be used for, but feel free to let me know if you do. There was one other thing that I couldn't really make out. It's this thing here. Kind of looks like a weird bird creature and with a tail maybe. I don't know what or who this might be, but it did strike me as something I've seen before. So if you can shed any kind of light on what this actually is, I'd be very interested to find out. But I do want to get back to one of my other main components here, and that is the Borg vinculum. It was very heavily mentioned earlier in this episode by Geordi and his daughter specifically, that all Starfleet vessels are now linked to each other. They speak to each other. They have all sorts of, I guess it would be a subspace link with each other. I'm not sure how that works, but based on how this vinculum functions within Borg vessels, the Borg hive mind, all of that stuff, I think this might either be the thing that's connecting all of these Starfleet vessels together, or they reverse engineered it and they're using a similar technology, and that could prove decidedly deadly if someone were to get their hands on it and interrupt or take over all of the frequencies the ships are using to control each other, to connect with each other, and then in essence they would have control of the entire fleet, except for any of the more antiquated ships, primarily all of these legacy vessels being housed within the fleet yards that we saw earlier here, the Athens shipyards, the Fleet Museum. Is it possible that's going to be what happens? Because now I want to get to the actual crux of why I made this video, the things that I have not seen talked about at all. Data, lore, B4, lol, Alton, Soon, whatever you want to call this creature, this amalgamation of all the Soon work, all the data work. I'm just going to call it data because that's easiest right now. Was the security system, was the entire functional capacity of the security system for Daystrom Station. Obviously, our characters took data out of this place, brought them to the Titan, warped out of there. There is no longer a security system keeping this place safe. Obviously, there are other measures, more standard ones, and the whole procedure was for Starfleet to check in, I think, once every hour. We saw towards the end of the episode, after Riker stayed behind to secure the escape of all of his crewmates, that he was captured by who they thought was Starfleet intelligence. Turned out to be at least one of them was not. One of them was Vadic. One of them was the Changeling crew. So does that now mean this place is completely unguarded, unprotected, and possibly even being completely infiltrated right now by the Changelings? I don't know why this seems to be a plot point other people haven't really referenced. Maybe I completely missed some line in the episode that explains this. But now, this great black site with all of this technology, all of these world and galaxy-ending weapons, all of these famous people from Star Trek history, completely at the mercy of anyone who might stumble along and take these things. Now you might be asking yourself, well, the Changelings already infiltrated this place at least once back when they took that quantum tunneling device, and as we find out, Jean-Luc Picard's organic body. Is it possible they were only able to infiltrate up to a point and these were the only things they were able to take? Or is it potentially also likely that while we thought the quantum tunneling device was the distraction from the real motive of taking Jean-Luc Picard's body, is it possible this secondary motive of stealing Jean-Luc Picard's body was also misdirection or was also a subterfuge? Is it possible they really have no intention of using his body? That's supposed to misdirect our characters and the audience, and the real plan here was they did something to this data construct. Did they implant something in there, and did they really want Picard and crew to take data, to take lore, to take B4, this amalgamated Soong thing, onto the Titan? Is that, in essence, a time bomb or a trap? Is this going to lead our characters into an endgame they have no idea about right now? Or is it possible that this was just another way of distracting our characters so that they could get back in Daystrom and clean house, take out all these other things that they truly wanted access to in the first place? You see, I think there has to be something more going on here. Why would they have this whole link linked up security system, and then remove it completely, leaving the place unguarded. We saw that the Starfleet replacement crew, the security team that came to check out on everything, was taken out and or infiltrated by the changelings. So now we have a completely unguarded black site with the worst stuff in the universe completely at the hands of the enemy. We also have our hero ship with all of our characters, minus Troy and Riker, who are in captivity right now, with a potential time bomb or something else that's going to lead them astray and cause their downfall. I think that this may have been the ultimate plan right now, and whatever is going to happen on Frontier Day, whether it be a takeover or destruction of the fleet, whether it actually has something to do with Jean-Luc's body, I don't know. But there is absolutely more going on here, and I don't know why I haven't seen more people discussing the crippling of the security around Daystrom and how this could impact galactic events on a wider scale going forward. Obviously, I haven't worked out everything. Obviously, I don't know where they're going. Some people have seen the show, so they can probably tell me I'm completely wrong right now. But what do you think? Is there anything going on here more than meets the eye? Are some of these things going to come back into play and play a larger role, or were most of them just Easter eggs? And am I overthinking the Daystrom security, and is that not really an issue whatsoever? Leave all your thoughts below. As always, like, share, subscribe, ding the bell, all those things. I can't wait till the next episode. I can't wait to figure out where things are going here. But until next time,
this is the big goodbye.